spiritually speaking, we put the devil on notice this morning. Amen? That you're here to receive from the Lord what He would have you receive. He's willing to give you as much as you're willing to handle. Not a drop more. So with that being said, you know, the days of Elijah, it was all about the liberty. It's always about the Jubilee and being free, right? So when you blow the shofar, which is what they did in the Bible times, it was an alarm. It was letting know the person that worked in the village, when they heard that shofar, it means the enemy's coming and be on standby, or something's getting ready to happen. But it was a warning sound nonetheless. And it was also a sound of victory when you heard the shofar, especially as they blew it, as they walked around the walls of Jericho, a fortified city that God told them to go in and take, God's people. And these walls were really, really, really thick, right? And impenetrable. But God told them in 7 days, walk around the Jericho and then blow the shofar and watch the walls come tumbling down. And it did. So we blow the shofar and put the devil on notice that we are in a spirit of Jubilee. We are in a spirit that God's going to minister to us this morning, and we're going to be freed up. Amen? You have a chance to listen to a message, a brief message, a simple one. But you also have a chance to miss it. Today's message is called "The Napkin is Still Folded." And it's in the Gospel of John that we look. And it's a brief story about what they've seen in the tomb. But this folded napkin has great meaning if you grab a hold of it, if you understand what it means. So we look and turn our attention to the Gospel of John. It says, "Now, on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb early, while it was still dark, and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and to the other disciples, the one whom Jesus loved, and said to them, 'They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they laid him.' So Peter went out with John, the other disciple, and they were going toward the tomb. Both of them were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first." Don't know why that was important, but it's there. Verse 5, "And stooping down to look in, he saw the linen cloths lying there. But he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came following him and went into the tomb. And when he saw the linen cloth lying there," and here it is, verse 7, "and the face cloth," or in the King James Version it says the napkin, "which had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the other linen clothes, but folded up in a place by itself." That's significant. That's important. The Bible, in the Bible times, when someone died, it was the duty of the family members to go and take care of the body and put it in a place, get it burial ready, and put it in the tomb. In our case here with Jesus, this was Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus taking care of the body of Jesus. And it was no easy task to do that. I mean, they had to go to where Jesus was crucified, and they had to put up a ladder to get to Jesus, of course. They would climb this ladder with a sheet in their hand, if you will, some linen cloth, and they would harness Jesus' body in this cloth, or their family members, whoever was crucified. And they would get up there, and they would physically have to remove the hand from the spikes. The gristle, the bone tearing as they're taking it off. It's not a good thing. I mean, it's your loved one hanging on there. And they're doing this. Someone had to. They did it. Joseph and Nicodemus. And once they got them harnessed in there and took off the hands, they lowered them down so far, then they started with the feet and took the feet off in order to get Jesus fully down. Once he was down, they would carry him in this linen cloth to the place that he was to be buried. And as is customary to do, they would wash his body, like they would do their family member, and get it ready for burial. In this case, in our case, the Sabbath day was nearing and so forth. They didn't have enough time to put the ointments and spices on the body that they would normally do, and so they would have to return the next morning, and such is our story here. But they would wrap that body in a burial cloth initially, then put a napkin or a face cloth, in other words, on Jesus' face, and then the burial cloth would go over top that and the whole body, and thus make the body ready for burial. They would then place the body into an area within the tomb that is hewed out for that person. After about a year, they would go back in, after the body is decomposed, and collect the bones, and put these bones into a bone box, is what they call it. And that tomb would serve as a burial place for generations to come, if handled this way. In our particular story, we have to take into account, like you would walking away from a funeral. After the viewing, you're walking away. What are you doing? You're sniffling, you're crying, you're sharing, you're laughing, your memories. Not so much laughing, more crying and more sorrow in your heart. They are taking down the body of Jesus, getting Jesus ready for burial. This was all their hope, hanging on the cross. This was everything to them. For 3.5 years, they spent day and night with Jesus. And now, Joseph and Nicodemus and the rest of the disciples and the women who followed, they were of a place of despair. I mean, let's think about this for a minute. Jesus, who came to save the world, was hung upon the cross like a common criminal. And according to the religious leaders of the day, they were successful. During these 3 days, they were having a success party. They were like, yeah, we got him. You know, he ain't going to spread that false doctrine no more. He ain't going to make us look bad no more. So while the religious leaders were having a party, the disciples were in their room, hiding, sad, in despair, lacking hope, trying to console one another the best they can because they're grieving here. All their hopes and dreams went down the tubes. 3 days seemed like an eternity. Now that's probably what was happening on a physical realm, on a worldly realm. Let's talk about the spiritual realm. What do you think Satan and his demons were doing? They were having a victory party too, saying, we got him. This guy, we don't believe he was anything more than just an important person. God approved of him because we've seen the heavens open up. And God said, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. We saw that. We just done ruined God's plans. So they're kind of having a victory party too. Until God the Father looked to the angel and said, go get my boy. And when that angel's feet hit the ground, Jesus rose again on the third day, victorious. And the angel was left behind to tell Mary to go tell the disciples that Jesus has risen, as he said he would, and tell them to go meet him in Galilee. In our text, Mary is the first one to the empty tomb. She's there thinking in despair. She's there to prepare Jesus' body even further. And she sees the stone rolled away, and it's kind of frightening. She didn't expect that. Really. And so she runs to go get Peter and John, and together they get to the tomb in a disarray. And then Peter arrives, and just as we'd expect him to do, the one disciple stays out, Peter just runs right in. Mr. Compulsive. Just runs right in just to get a close-up. And he saw the linen laying there, and then he saw the napkin, the face cloth, lying separate from the linen burial clothes, folded neatly. And the Gospel of John tells us that this napkin, which was placed over the face of Jesus, that it was in fact separate. And we have to, if we don't think that's important, we've got another thing coming, because the Bible, in Hebrew history, this napkin was important. As you can see here, we've got a dinner table set up, and this is a master's table. They probably wouldn't have foamware back then, so pretend it's pottery. But the master would sit at the head of the table, and the family would sit around. More importantly, if the master of the house had guests, that made it even more important that this table was done right. The servant of the master would make sure everything had its place. Everything was neatly done according to the master's plans. If the master was left-handed or right-handed, depending on where things were placed, it had to be perfect. That was that servant's duty, to make sure that table was set in a way that, one, honors the master, and two, honors the guests that come through the door. And so, the table is set. The dinner's been made ready. The master sits down to eat. The master takes the napkin, puts it on his lap, or does whatever with it, eats his food and stuff, but here's the part you need to remember. The servant is over here, out of the way, unseen, doesn't want to be seen. It's about the master, it's about the guests, nothing more. The servant is not about being seen. The servant is out of the way, looking at the master. The attention is on the master. Because that servant's looking for something. That servant's looking for something. Because when the master picks up his napkin, does this, cleans his hands, crumbles it up, throws it down, steps away. That tells that servant the master is done. The servant can come in and take the plate and take all the dirty dishes away. But if the master wasn't done, the master would do this, wipe his fingers, fold the napkin back up, and place it down where it came. That visibly told the servant, my master's not done eating. He has work to do. He's yet to finish. You take on the meaning of the folded napkin and the tube. It's off to the side. It's not thrown off. I mean, in my opinion, I'm thinking, if Jesus was, in a hurry, he just rose from the dead. If he's in a hurry, the face cloth would just go, and the burial clothes would go. Out comes Jesus, we're all happy. Why did the Bible make it a point to say the napkin is off to the side, folded neatly? Because Jesus was trying to tell something to the disciples. They called him Master. They called him Lord. And Jesus said, you're right, for I am your Master, and I am your Lord. And he went on to tell the story. But that's what they referred him to as. And so when Peter and John went into the tomb and saw that folded napkin, it told them, as a servant, Jesus ain't done. Jesus' work is not done. I submit to you 3 different things that Jesus ain't done with it. And the first thing is this. He's not finished saving souls. He's not finished saving souls. The folded napkin says that he's not finished saving souls. That's what that napkin means. He's not done with you. He's not done with me. He's not done with the wayward heart. He's not done with the world. Jesus has work to do, but he wants to do it through you. And so, what will Hagans Christian Church do to reach more souls? What will you do? What will be your part into helping reach more souls for Jesus? Lost souls. We're talking about salvation. John 3:17 says, "For God sent not His Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through Him might be saved." He sent you into the world, not to condemn the world, but by through Him into you, to the world might be saved. Acts 4:12. "Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved." Here's the trick to that. See, you invite somebody to church, and then you run the risk of saying you're the reason this person's saved. No, you're the waterer, or you're the planter, you're the waterer, but God's going to draw that person to Himself. You're just the means to get there. You're the conduit. I read an article one time. It's called "The Autopsy of a Deceased Church" by Dr. Tom Raymond. An autopsy of a deceased church. And basically what the article is about is how does a church die? When its people start thinking inwardly and over the years start dwindling down to very little because they're not reaching outwardly and fulfilling the mission of God, and the church dies. Sometimes those deaths are painful, long, drug-out deaths. Sometimes those deaths are quick. But nonetheless, it was a very meaningful article to me because we have so many churches out there closing its doors because of this one reason too. They start thinking inwardly. They lost focus on what Jesus came to do through us. The second thing, or looking at Romans 3:23, "For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God." In God's eyes, there's no difference. There's no difference. So salvation is for everybody. God's shown that through His love for the world. But yet you and I are the ones that put strings attached. That you have to look right, feel right, the right height, whatever, before you can come and bless us with your presence. That's not true. Come as you are. God will not leave you where He finds you. The second point is that the napkin that is still folded means He's not finished reclaiming the backsliders. Now, if you're reading with us in our daily Bible reading, a chapter a day, you've already came across scriptures where Paul the Apostle starts talking about how there's been some people that went away from the faith, left the faith. And Paul talks about it. So it's like people that was on the path got off the path. And they need talked into coming back to the path. And we all have those people in our families. Not knowing what they're supposed to be doing with the Word of God. Yeah, they believe, but so does the devil. So we understand that our faith needs action. And our action is our presence, being in a local body of church, so that we can evangelize our communities in the world. That we're stronger together. We talked about that last Sunday. That we are stronger together. We are stronger in a herd than we are as individuals. In God, and in His Word, Jesus Christ says, we are family. We belong together. We work together. We minister together. And so the napkin that is still folded means that He's not done reclaiming the backslider. And we need to get people back into the gospel. In Peter's time, I think it's worth noting this. As we've seen in Mark chapter 16, in Mark's account of this particular incident, we need to pay attention to something in verse 7. It says, "But go your way, tell His disciples and Peter that he goeth before you into Galilee. There ye shall see Him, as He said He would." Now listen, this is the picture I want to paint for you, because this is real. Mary comes back to the disciples where they were huddled up in their room in despair, crying, weeping, loss of hope. And Peter's in the corner, in despair too. He just denied Christ 3 times, and then the rooster crowed. You and I deny Christ in our actions, in our words, and it makes us feel guilty. And if it doesn't, I check your spiritual pulse because you need to come back wholeheartedly to the Lord. The point of the matter is, Peter wasn't perfect, neither are you, but here's the blueprint that gets you back to the Lord. And this is the blueprint. This is what tells me that God pays attention to every person. Mary comes back, tells the disciples, hey, Jesus is gone. We need to go back. He says to meet him in Galilee. He's risen. And she's looking through the crowd of the disciples and moves them away. Hey, Peter, Jesus wanted me to tell you to come too. Specifically him. Why do you think he did that? Why do you think it specifically notes Peter in Mark? Because Jesus knew Peter would be in a point of despair. He knew he would be very sorrowful in his heart, and he wanted to make sure, Peter, you come too. Sometimes people let Jesus down, and they say, well, I go to church. All the roof will fall in. Or they don't come back, whatever. But it was because they denied Christ so much. You tell them. Peter did the same thing. Come on back. Let God work with you from there. I heard about a little boy whose mother was upset with him for doing something very naughty. And they had a chalkboard in their house where they wrote the day's chores and stuff like that. As an organized family would, we just write down what things to do and stuff. And on that chalkboard, that boy had wrote, if you forgive me, erase this. He wrote that to his mother on that chalkboard. And about an hour later, the boy, and within that hour, goes to his room and he's very sorrowful like Peter was. And he's crying and stuff like that. And he knew he did wrong. But about an hour later, he goes back to the kitchen where the chalkboard was. And he sees it erased. It's a symbol to the boy that the mom and back for the kid. That napkin was a symbol that God's work was not done. He's still working on you. He's still working on me. He's still forgiving. He's still full of grace and mercy. And in closing, I want to tell you that God's erased your chalkboard. Whatever problem, please forgive me, God, that you can put on that chalkboard. God's erased it. You're the only one that remember it. Matter of fact, you keep on bringing it up each and every time. You try to come closer. I can't start that Bible study, God. I keep on forgetting to read it. I'm not worthy to read it. We all do that to ourselves. Stand with me, if you will. The table said, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, the Bible says, Jesus will come back with the trumpet sound of God. Those who are fallen asleep in the Lord will come first. Those who are still alive and believe in the Lord will be caught up together with them in the air. You'll receive a new body, one that will not decay, one that is not full of sin or temptation, a new body that will not die. You will stand before the great white throne of judgment. And Jesus, you'll stand account. Your name will either be written in the Lamb's Book of Life or it won't. I don't want you standing before God and saying, God, you checked again. My name's in there somewhere. No. I'm not seeing it on it. Can you flip a few pages? No. No, I don't see it. And then it's too late. At that point, it is just too late. It is over. You have the opportunity right now to come closer to God. We need to let things that beset us, things that get us out of the way, things that come into that keeping us away from God, we need to put those things aside, because there's coming a day where that don't matter. That don't save you. You can't say that you was too busy. You can't say that God, everybody was doubting you and there wasn't enough evidence to believe in you. You can't say that anymore. It's all going to be in your face right there. I couldn't help but notice when we sing Glory This Day, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. All the skeptics that's out there that we hear on the radio, TV, whatever, doesn't matter what they say. Jesus is still God. Jesus is going to be Jesus. He's still Lord of it all. He still went to the cross, even though there's 35 plus 100 documents authenticizing the Bible, even though you've got minds approaching God and not hearts approaching God in the science world, God still exists. It ain't going to matter. It ain't going to matter on that day. Jesus said, I sent you sign and sign and sign and sign time and time again. You didn't listen. I knocked on the door of your hearts, and He did not open to me. I put poor people in front of you, and you did not give unto me. I told you to go visit those who are in prison, and you didn't come and visit them. What's the church doing if it's not thinking about those on the outsides of these walls? You're here. Let God speak to you. Well, let's go get those that don't know Him. Amen? I always believe you should take care of your own house before you should try to take care of the house of God. So let's get our minds right. Let's be humble in heart. Let's approach God with all transparency and a broken spirit. Let's pray. Our precious Heavenly Father, as you draw us closer to you this morning, as you set the table, you set an opportunity before us to come closer to you, Lord God. And I pray, whether it be in the pews or at this altar, Lord God, that we understand that your work in us as individuals, you're not done. Your work at Hagans Christian Church, you're not done. Your work in the world is not done. Lord, I pray that, as your word says, if there be anything within us that we need to work on, I pray that you draw us closer to you. I pray that we can break those chains that so easily bind us up, Lord God, and come closer to you. I just ask you to guide us and direct us closer to you, to this altar. Let us give it to you. Let us confess our sins to you, Lord God. Let us move in freedom and in jubilee this morning, Lord God. And Lord God, as we leave this place, the Holy Spirit is not going to be done with us. We're going to continue to work what we set out to do. Guide us and direct us closer to you this morning. In Jesus' name.